Alright, check this out. Here we have an Aorus 15G with an 8-core i7, an 80-watt 3080, and a 240Hz Full HD display. This video will demonstrate thermal and frame rate performance in Battlefield 5, and we will compare this to an 80-watt and 125-watt 3070 at these in-game settings. Within the firing range, you can see that our 80-watt 3080 is producing FPS around 175, and if we limit the CPU wattage, it begins to dynamically boost to 95 watts, with the FPS results around 190. The 80-watt 3080 sits somewhere between an 80-watt and 125-watt 3070 as far as FPS performance in this specific test. Your eyes are not deceiving you. A higher wattage, lower tier 3070 is edging out an 80-watt 3080 in today's test. If you've been following Bob of All Trades for any length of time, this should not be too surprising to you. The beauty here, however, with this Aorus 15G is how this actually works in-game using Dynamic Boost. What you are seeing here is real-world results, and a game like Battlefield 5's multiplayer will require a ton of CPU grunt. Our 8-core i7 is pulling past 62 watts sometimes as it attempts to feed this 3080. The 3080 will scale down below its 80-watt base, however, in order to achieve the best balance of frame rate performance and thermal performance. Should you seek higher GPU wattage by lowering the CPU wattage in attempt to gain FPS, the result is a poor one for CPU-intensive titles like this. The perception of high GPU clock speed and GPU wattage mean nothing if the GPU is not fully saturated, as shown in the video link below. The 3080 sits around 70 degrees Celsius, and the 8-core i7, while pulling massive wattage trying to saturate this graphics card, is into the 80s. To further add to the fun, it was recommended that I disable NVIDIA's Dynamic Boost 2.0 by disabling NVIDIA platform controllers and framework. What happens with the Aorus 15G now is a GPU that caps out at 80 watts. At first, this seems great, but after a short period of time, let's say 5 minutes, the CPU limits itself to 30 watts and performance tanks as a result. At first, I thought this was triggered due to CPU thermal throttling, but after further examination of the 16 gigabytes of data I have for this game alone, this doesn't seem likely. I even tried to undervolt the GPU with Dynamic Boost disabled, and while you can technically do this, the end result for the CPU wattage drop was still inevitable. With that said, I don't have an answer for the solution should you seek one, but I can tell you that with Dynamic Boost on, this Aorus 15G is doing a good job on its own. I'm not sure if I need to offer anything better than what you see here. Just let her rip, boys.